Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm here with another tutorial. This time it is for this adorable little jellycat inspired succulent. In this video, we're going to be going over how to do the pot and the feet, and then I'll do a part 2 with how to do the leaves because it's a little bit more complicated and I thought it would be a better idea to just split it up rather than make one super long video. But I hope you love them. This is one of my favorite patterns I've ever been able to make, and yeah, enjoy. Let's just get started with our materials. I like to use the Bernat blanket yarn. I have one color for my pot and I have a brown color for the dirt and the feet. Because I'm using Bernat blanket yarn, I use a size J or 6mm hook. I have scissors, I have safety eyes, some stuffing, stitch marker, a needle. And what I do differently that I think adds a lot to this project is I just use a little piece of cardboard, which I will show you how to use when we get to it. Starting with your pot color of choice, we are going to do either a magic circle or the chain 2 method. I prefer to do the chain 2 method, which consists of a slip knot onto your hook and doing 2 chains and then doing your starting single crochet into this first single crochet. You can also do a magic circle if you prefer. Into this first single crochet, we are going to do 8 single crochet. So that was 1, 2,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
and 8 stitches for the end of round 1. Now moving on to round 2, we're going to do an increase in every stitch. So into our first stitch here, we're going to do 1 single crochet. I'm going to add my stitch marker here. I like to put it at the start of each round. And into this same stitch that we just went into, we're going to do another single crochet. So an increase is essentially doing 2 single crochet in the same stitch. So that was 1. In the next stitch, we're going to do another increase. So 1 single crochet and 2 single crochet in the same. And we're going to repeat this pattern all the way around. And this should bring us up to a total of 16 stitches for the round. One thing that I like to do for this round, because this is going to be the base of our pot, I like to make sure I'm crocheting nice and loose just because I want it to be flat. And I find if I'm a little bit too tense while I'm crocheting this bottom part, it kind of curls up and it looks a little odd. So just be aware of your tension and maybe try and be as loose as you can when you're doing this step. 16 single crochets for the end of round 2. Now moving on to round 3, we're going to do a single crochet in the first stitch where our stitch marker is. So 1 single crochet, and then in the next stitch, we're going to do an increase. So 1, 2 in the same stitch. And we're going to repeat this pattern around. So a single crochet into the next, and into the one after that, we're going to do an increase. If we repeat this pattern all the way around of a single crochet followed by an increase, it should bring us up to a total of 24 stitches for the end of round 3. And one final increase to finish us off and bring us up to 24 stitches for the end of round 3. Moving on to round 4, we're going to continue to make it a little bigger, so the pattern will be a little different. In this first stitch here, we're going to do 1 single crochet. Into the second stitch, we're also going to do 1 single crochet. And into every third stitch, we're going to do an increase. So 1, 2 in the same. So again, that was 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, and then an increase. So 2 single crochets followed by an increase all the way around, and this will bring us up to a total of 32 stitches for the end of round 4. And one final increase will bring us up to 32 stitches for the end of round 4. That is officially the base of our plant complete. If we flip it over, I like to take this little tail from the start and tie it in a double knot just to make sure it is secure and it's not going to come undone, but that is just my personal preference. And once that is done, we are ready to move on to round 5. For round 5, we're going to be doing something called working in the back loops only. If we look at each stitch here, you can see roughly there's 1 loop here and 1 loop up here. So if I stick my hook in this one, that is the front loop. And if I stick my hook in this one, that is the back loop. So on each stitch we do, we're going to be working into just this back one, or kind of the top one when you look at it from the side. This will just make it so that the sides of our plant go up as opposed to continuing to spread outwards. So working into these back loops only, so this one right here, we're just going to do 32 single crochet around. So if we look at this one, front loop, back loop. So we're going to go right in the middle and pick up that top one and just do a single crochet. Again, front loop, back loop. If we go in between the two, we should pick up the back loop. And repeat this all the way around. We now have 32 around. If you just left it alone, it should kind of turn in like this. We're gonna wanna just flip it out the other way. And if you look at it, you can kind of see that it's starting to make a bit more of a bowl shape. Moving on to round 6, we're simply going to do 32 single crochet around. We're back to working through the both loops like a standard crochet project. And we're just gonna do one regular single crochet in every stitch all the way around. So we should stay at a total of 32 stitches by the end of this round. And one final single crochet to give us 32. Now, for the next 6 rounds, we are going to repeat the 32 single crochet around. So you're gonna do 6 more rounds of 32 single crochet around. I'm gonna complete these off camera and come back and meet me here once you are done with those. After the 7 rounds, you should have a nice little bowl that looks like this. Now we're gonna go ahead and get started on the feet. I like to make the feet now so I can sew them on while the top of the pot is still open. I find this just makes it easier, and it's easier to adjust the placement of them if you'd like. To start these, again, we're gonna start with either the magic circle or the chain 2. I prefer the chain 2, so that's what I'm gonna go with. And we're gonna do 1, 2. And then to start the round, we're gonna do 5 single crochet. So we have 1, 2,
3, 4, and
5 single crochet for round 1. Now moving on to round 2, we're going to do increases all the way around. From before, that was 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So we have 1 and 2 into that first stitch. Again, into the second one, we're going to do 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet. And we're going to repeat this around, which should bring you up to a total of 10 single crochet for the round. And 10 single crochet for the end of round 2. I'm going to take the time now to tie my double knot with that first string here, just because we're going to start decreasing after this and things can get a little tight. For round 3, we're going to start with 2 single crochet. So 1 into this first stitch and 1 into the second stitch. Now we're going to do 3 decreases. I like to do what's called the invisible decrease, which is where you take the front loops of the next 2 stitches and basically combine them into one. So this is our next stitch here. As you can see, we have the back loop on top. The front loop is this one that's hidden under there a little. So I like to dig under it, and there's 1. Then I like to almost try and kind of scoop up the second front loop like that. Now that they're both on my hook, I can yarn over, pull through both, if it will let me. I should have 2 loops, and we finish it off like a single crochet. Alternatively, if that's a little tricky, you can do the 2 in 1, which is where you just go through both loops like you're doing a single crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, repeat this in the next stitch and pull it through. So you have 3, and then yarn over and pull it through all 3 to kind of combine them that way. There's really no difference for me, especially when we're working on something as small as the feet, but the choice is completely personalized and up to you, so use whatever you find to be the easier method. Now that we've done 3 decreases, we're going to just do 2 single crochets to finish off the round. Now we should have something that looks roughly like this. Now moving on to round 4, we're going to again start with 2 single crochet. So 1 into this first stitch, and another one into this second one, We're gonna follow this with one more decrease. I'm gonna do the 2-in-1 just because it's proving to be a lot easier today. And then to finish off the round, we're just gonna do 3 single crochet back to the start. So 1. Now we have something that looks roughly like this, and you can see the little foot part at the end of it. Now for round 5, we're simply going to do 6 single crochet around. So we have 1, 2, and 6 single crochet for the end of round 5. Now we have something that looks roughly like this, and we can go ahead and stuff a little bit of stuffing into the tip of the foot there. Now we have something that looks roughly like this. If you pinch this part here and kind of push on the end, you can get more of that foot shape. To finish this foot off, we're going to single crochet it shut. So what we're gonna do is this next stitch here, you're gonna put your hook through like you're gonna go to do a crochet, and then the last stitch that you finished making, you're also going to put your hook through like so. Yarn over, pull it through both of those, and now just do a single crochet. And we're gonna repeat this 2 more times because we had 6 stitches, half of 6 is 3. So we have 1 there, into the middle. And finally, we have 1 little one on the end here. And now it is single crocheted shut. We have a little foot that looks something like this. Now we can go ahead and cut this off from our ball, and you're gonna wanna leave a small tail because we're going to be sewing this on to the pot. Now you can go ahead and repeat this process again. I will put the written instructions on the screen and make a second foot so that we have 2. Now you should have 2 little feet that look something like this, and we can go ahead and sew them onto the pot. I like to use the last stitch we did as a center point, and I like to sew the feet roughly in this second round here from this outer edge. Just kind of hold it up, see if it roughly aligns with where my middle is and how I want my feet to look. And then I go ahead and just put a stitch in. So we'll say I put it here, which is in the second round. Then I'm just going to go through over to the next stitch. Double check that I'm happy with the placement. I think that looks centered. I'm going to go through the next stitch on the foot. Pull that tight. Then I'm going to go down into this last stitch on the edge of the foot. So through the next one on the foot, I'm going to pull that through. And I'm also going to go down into the next one on the pot. So as you can see, the last one was here. So the next one would be here. Then I can pull this up on the inside of the pot. Double check that I'm happy with how it's placed. If you like them to be a bit more dangly, you can leave it like this, but what I like to do is go right along this edge where you can see the stitches from our back loops. So I'm going to put my needle through right here on one edge. Then I line up the foot like this and simply go through the foot where it aligned with in a straight line, like so. Pull it through and go back in around the same spot, but on the other side, if that makes sense. Pull this tight, and you can now see the foot is now attached right onto the pot like that. So we have something that looks roughly like this. If we sit it like that, that is our 1 foot. For the second foot, I like to leave a 2 or 3 stitch gap in between the 2 of them and make something that looks roughly like this. To sew it on, I do roughly the same process as the first one. Find a placement, do the simple weave up, down across the bottom of the leg here to get it in place. And then I do my 1 final stitch along the front to hold it in place. I've always found this to be an effective way for me to get the foot on there, and so that I'm happy with the placement and it doesn't wiggle around too much once you are done with it. And then back into the inside. I also like to make sure that I finish my sewing with the threads on the inside so I can do what I'm about to show you. 1 final double check. Looks even to me. I'm happy with it. If we flip this whole thing inside out, we can see our 2 tails from each foot. I like to simply double knot these together. Not too tight that it deforms the shape of them, but tight enough that nothing is going to come loose and it can hold all those stitches in place. And you should have your completed pot with some little feet on it. This is where I bring in the cardboard. As you can see, it's pretty flimsy because it's just yarn and there's nothing necessarily holding this shape at the bottom. Sure, we can add stuffing, but it's not always the most secure. So what I like to do, flip this upside down and cut out a rough circle the size of the bottom, but a little smaller out of this cardboard so that we can slide it into the bottom of our piece here. As you can see, I'm not very accurate about it as long as it's the rough shape, and this you can see is too tight because it's stretching the piece out. I want it to be just big enough that it fits in there nice and smooth. No extra stretching, just kind of holding the shape that we already created. So if we look at that, I'm happy with how that fits in, and it makes it a nice round shape, and you'll see it can't really move in and it'll stay like that. Keep your cardboard around because we are going to repeat this process at the top, but I do it a little differently, so I'll show you how we do that in a second. Now, while the top is still open is when I like to add in my little eyes. I believe these are 10mm ones, but you can use whatever size you like. The specific round, I usually just guesstimate, and I usually do 4 stitches in between, but it depends on how you sewed on the feet so that they look even. Now that our eyes are attached and you're happy with the placement, we can go back to crocheting. It's time that we're going to switch over to the color of the dirt. So for me, I used dark brown, but you can use whatever color you would like. To change colors, I simply go to do a single crochet in the next stitch. So yarn through, yarn over, and pull through, so you have 2 loops. Instead of pulling this over, I'd like to take my brown, leaving a little tail on the back, put it over the hook, and pull it through both loops. Now we can go ahead and just continue to crochet in brown. For this round, which works out to round 13, we are going to be doing 32 single crochets in the back loops once again. If you can see, we have back loops and front loops. We are going to work in the back loops all the way around. Doing this will just help bend the project inwards, which is what we want to do because we want it to be more or less flat on top as opposed to a big round ball shape. And your 32nd stitch should be in that first gray one we did at the start of the round, just so that we have a full 32 in brown. Now that this round's done, we can go ahead and cut our gray yarn free from the pot. And then I like to tie, again, a double knot using that brown tail that we left and the gray one that is left over. And with the brown, you should have something that looks roughly like this, and it should start to bend in a little bit if you push on it. Now for round 14, we are going to start to decrease this down. We're going to start with 2 single crochet. So we have 1 in the first stitch, as well as 1 in the second stitch. We're working in both loops again now as well. Now in this third one, we are going to go ahead and do a decrease. So again, front loop, front loop. It's a lot easier on this part than it is to do on those little tiny feet. So I would recommend doing the invisible decrease here, especially because we don't want any gaps once we stuff this. Again, that was 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, and then a decrease. So again, that was front loop, yarn over, pull through both, and then yarn over and pull through both. We're going to repeat this process all the way around, and it should bring us down to a total of 24 stitches. And with our final decrease, we should have 24 single crochet to end the round, and we have something that looks like this. Now for round 15, we're doing a similar process, but we're going to decrease a little bit faster. We're going to do 1 single crochet into this next stitch, and immediately after that 1 single crochet, we're going to do a decrease. So the new pattern around is going to be 1 single crochet followed by a decrease to bring us down to a total of 16 stitches for the end of round 15. And this one final decrease brings us down to 16 stitches for the end of round 15, and we have a little cone head looking guy like so. For our final half round on the top, I guess we'll call it, we're just gonna do 4 decreases. So this will just bring us down to 12 stitches. It won't make a complete round around. We're just gonna do 1,
2, 3,
and 4 decreases to bring us down to a total of 12 stitches around. We can go ahead and fasten off, leaving a pretty long tail just to sew things shut. Now you can go ahead and stuff your pot to your desired consistency. I like to do mine a little firmer just because it's a pot, but be careful not to put too much in the top or else it does kind of make it into that dome shape. This project is also a great one to use scrap yarn for because it doesn't necessarily have to be particularly soft and cuddly because we already got cardboard and things in there. So I find this is a good way to use up my yarn scraps as well. Now that our pot is stuffed, we have something that looks like this. And I said we were going to use another piece of cardboard, which is what we're going to do now. I cut out another cardboard circle that was around the same size as the top of my piece. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to take it and just cut it right in half. What this does is it allows us to actually fit it inside because obviously a full circle is not going to go through this tiny little hole. So what I like to do is just shove one end in, and if you kind of wiggle and stretch a little, you might have to go around the edge. You can fit this other end in just like so, and now you have half in there. For the other side, I can show you again because I think I kind of blocked some of it. We're just going to take the bottom edge, shove it in there as far as you can, wiggle it around, and then just adjust the placement until you're happy with it, and you can feel the circle in the top. So I can feel it on each side here and here. What this does is it makes sure that we have a consistent shape between the top and the bottom. So if we squeeze like this, it's not going in anymore, it's not going to go out anymore. And I find it really, really helpful when you're sewing on the leaves, which I'll go over in the next video. You're not going to pull up any stuffing or yarn bits or anything as you're going in and out. Now we can go ahead and sew the top of our pot shut. To do this, I like to go inwards through the front loop of the next stitch and then outwards through the front loop in the next. And I repeat this pattern around, pulling it tight as I go. You're going to want to cinch it as you go so that your yarn doesn't happen to snap as you go. We want to slowly tighten this just to cover up this hole. Cinch it as much as we can. And you can see the hole is pretty much closed off. I like to just do 1 or 2 like so, going around and over that particular spot in the middle, just to make sure it's really nice and secured for me. Now that I'm happy with how shut this is, and I'm confident that this is locked in, I'm gonna go ahead, tie a double knot with this, and then I can simply push this back inside the body of our pot. That is your basic jellycat pot complete. In the next video, I'm gonna go over how to make these little leaves, how I attach them, and how we do the little smile and finishing details. Stay tuned for the next one. And yeah, thank you again for watching and thank you for your support. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya!